thoroughly interesting, and as I have mentioned before, you will have a possibility to ask questions at the end of the session. Now I would like to ask our next presenter, Laura Gillett. Sorry if I pronounce your name in an appropriate way. And the title of the presentation is Active Involvement in Child Care, Non-Parental Values Predicts Attitudes and Caregiving Behaviours Toward Pets. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura, and I'm a PhD student at the Department of Ethology at ELTE University. And I'm going to talk about pet care and child care. So I want to start with some background regarding this topic. So about attitudes towards domesticated animals, they really took a turn after or during the Industrial Revolution. So human-like roles and companionship functions became predominant, as before that companionship functions for animals were mostly the privilege of financial elite, because the middle and lower classes couldn't afford to feed pets or animals that had no economic value. And later on, after demographic transitions, especially the second demographic transitions, we see societal changes, technical advances such as contraceptive, urbanization, migration, all of that reorganized our human social networks, and more and more people decided not to have children. So as of today, pet ownership and humanization of pets became increasingly popular, especially in the Western world, while fertility rates keep falling. Here I include Hungary in the large Western world. Of course, it's debatable, but in that case, okay, I consider it as a Western culture. So some numbers about pet keeping and fertility. As for dog ownership, 44% of households own at least one dog in 2010, and now it's about 50%. And the number of live births decreased by about 24% from 1995 to 2023. So is there a link between the two phenomena? I'm going to present briefly previous findings on the links between modern pet keeping behavior and human reproductive success, because at our department in our research we usually we have a biological evolutionary focus on these questions on human behavior. So on the positive side, most representative studies in the world show that families with children are more likely to have pets in the household. So there's a positive association if we just look at the numbers of children and pets. And pets can also serve as practice child, so it improves parenting skills and therefore might work as a honest signal of parenting skills. On the other hand, for some people, caring for a pet can be an opportunity to perform nurturing behavior without having to commit to the full-time demands of having children. So here we highlight that it's important not only to consider the pet keeping decisions to have a pet or not, but also the attitudes toward pets and the motives behind pet keeping. So my research question was about whether modern pet keeping practices are associated with pet attitudes. Modern pet keeping practices and pet attitudes are associated with childbearing decisions. The main hypothesis, as I said, in other countries there was a positive association between having a child and a pet, so we assumed that it was the same in Hungary. However, we hypothesized that attitudes and caregiving behaviors toward pets will vary according to the owner's opportunity to regularly care for a young child and have contact with them. Specifically, pet owners who do not have childcare opportunities will show enhanced emotional, financial, and time investment in pet keeping compared to those who have child access, so who care for children. So my sample was representative of the Hungarian population. About 70% had or have had biological children, but almost less than a quarter had still a child under 18 in the household, and most adults in the sample had no regular opportunity to care for a child below the age of 6. And about 40% of the sample owned at least one pet in the household. Mostly it was dogs, cats, or several species at the same time. So what I did is I had cluster analysis to categorize people based on social demographic data, and I found 4 main clusters of profiles: seniors, empty nesters, childless young adults, and parents of young children. So the first 2 profiles have had grown-up biological children, but they left the household. And the third group had no biological children yet, but 80% said that they want children in the future. And as for the last group, I called it parents of young children because they were in the family formation stage, so most of them had underage child in the household, cared for a young child, and half of them wanted more children. And as for these 3 groups, they reported that they actually don't have contact with really young children. So what I did is I compared these 4 profiles regarding their pet keeping decisions and also their attitudes and caregiving behaviors towards pets. So starting with the first results, the profile with the lowest frequency of pet ownership was childless young adults, and the highest frequency was among parents of young children. Similarly, parents of young children were more likely to have 3 or more pets compared to all other profiles, and childless young adults were more likely to have only 1 pet. And regarding species preferences, cat ownership was the most popular among childless young adults, and dog ownership among seniors, and parents of young children were the profile, were the frequency of owning another species of pets, so like Kata described, small mammals, birds, fish, reptiles. So they were more likely to own those species or to own multiple species at the same time. Moving on attitudes and caregiving behaviors, I will only describe those variables where the difference was significant between the profiles. So regarding the money spent monthly on the pet, so it's in Hungarian forints, seniors and parents of young children were the ones who spent the least money on their pet compared to the 2 other groups. And this is the time, active time spent daily with the favorite pet, and the childless young adults, followed by empty nesters, invested the most time in their pets daily. Another set of questions was about how burdensome is it for you that you have to dedicate time to the pet, that you have to find holiday care arrangement, and how burdensome was the responsibility coming with pet ownership. And these seniors scored the lowest, and parents of young children scored the highest, together with childless young adults. Then we also asked the question whether the owner was perceiving their pet as more important than any human. So I categorized the answer as agree, disagree, or can't decide. And parents of young children were really likely to disagree compared to childless young adults who were the most likely to agree with the statement. I also performed a binomial regression on the whole sample. The first regression model was with the outcome of caring for a young child, yes or no, and the predictors were all these attitudes and behavior variables. And the first model shows that those who do not regularly care for a young child derived more benefits from their pets and report fewer practical difficulties. Here, this is the odds ratio for the opposite. So those who care for a child under 6 are 5.7 times more likely to report pet-related issues and social and financial difficulties. I also performed the same kind of model with the outcome underage household member, yes or no, and those who did not have an underage household member were more likely to say that their pet is more important than any human to them. So we found that families with children in the household are more likely to acquire pets and in bigger numbers. This is consistent with what we saw in other countries before. We also found that different species different social demographic profiles prefer different type of species, and one explanation is that maybe families choose pets primarily for the children, so they choose maybe species perceived as lower maintenance. As for young adults, maybe they prefer cats because they were, I didn't describe it in details, but they were also more likely to live in Budapest, to be university students, so these urban lifestyles, maybe cats are better suited compared to dogs for rural lifestyles. So those pet owners who had regular contact with children, whether they were living with a child or had the opportunity to care for a really young child, reported more difficulties in pet keeping, including responsibility-related issues. And one assumption is that investing resources in favorite pet may be incompatible with investing the same resources in children. Therefore, there are less time and less money for the pet. They also placed less emotional importance on their pet compared to other humans, also probably because in their case, the children and the partners living together with them were perceived as more important, emotionally speaking. Overall, they had different attitudes toward pets. So for them, most likely pets are integrated into the human family, because I didn't see any differences as in how, like, the perception of the pet as a family member between the profiles, only as more important than anyone else. So these pets in families with children may be also assimilated to children, but they do not substitute for them. As for owners who don't have the opportunity to care for children, they enjoyed caring for the pet and being emotionally close to their pets more. So here pet keeping can be seen as an alternative way of engaging in parenting behavior. So as a general conclusion, I would like to state that the link between pet keeping and human fertility rates is probably indirect, so it's not that someone gets a pet and don't want a child, or it's not directly linked. It's important to consider the role and the place of the pet in the owner's life and social network. And pet keeping practices can take several forms depending on the needs and motivations of the owner. So in our case, when there's no human nurturing target for those natural behaviors for humans to care for others in the environment, so if there's no children specifically, these caregiving behaviors may be redirected towards pets, and this translates into a higher investment into pet care. But when young children are in the household, then pets have a different function. They may entertain children, teach them to become more responsible, and parents in that case invest much more into childcare than into pet care. So here are some recommended readings on the topic, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And if I'm not mistaken, our next presenter will be online. And I ask Billy